My hand hovered over the cold, brass doorknob. It was smooth from decades of palms pushing through, but I didn't push. I just listened. I should knock, of course. I should announce myself like a proper daughter, returning home at 9:47 on a Tuesday night. But I heard the laughter first. The expensive kind. The kind that comes after the third pour of scotch, that costs more per bottle than most people's mortgage payments. My father's voice cut through first, rich and confident. It was the voice he used when he was about to close a deal or ruin someone's life, sometimes both at once. Another round, gentlemen. Glass clinked. Ice rattled. My sister, Sloane's, laugh followed, sharp and bright. I knew that laugh. She saved it for moments when someone was about to get destroyed and didn't know it yet. She saves it for me. I could almost hear the cruel satisfaction in her tone as she mentioned my simple life. She still lives in that sad apartment. My dad laughed while my sister showed off her new Tesla. Then, the television would flash. Aether's IPO hit $500 million. And the CEO. Me. But they didn't know that yet. I should have walked away. Driven back to my anonymous apartment, with its second-hand furniture, and working locks that kept out everyone. Especially the people who shared my last name. But then I heard it. 3 words that rooted my feet to the Persian runner beneath them. Rosewood Cottage sale. My grandmother's house. The only place in my entire childhood where someone looked at me and saw something other than a disappointment in a cardigan. I leaned closer to the door, feeling the heavy, imperfect seal give way to the sound traveling through. 20 million. My father's voice carried the weight of confession. Bad cases. Thought I could win them. Gambled wrong. Bryce Sterling spoke next. My ex-boyfriend. The one who told me I was brilliant right before he told me I wasn't wife material. His voice had that oily quality investment bankers cultivate. Smooth and slick and utterly without friction. The cottage appraises at $850,000. Quick sale. Clean paperwork. My commission is 8%. $160,000 for me. Enough to cover your immediate obligations. He paused, then added. And Mackenzie never has to know the extent of the problem. Sloane laughed again. She won't ask questions. She never does. Just signs whatever you put in front of her, and smiles like a grateful puppy. My chest tightened, not with surprise, but with immediate, cold recognition. I could fix this right now. I could open this door, walk in, and offer to write a check. $20 million was nothing. Less than nothing. Aether Systems cleared $40 million in revenue last quarter alone, and the IPO opened tomorrow morning at a projected $84 per share. But I didn't move. Because my father was still talking. And the next words landed like a fist to the sternum. Not a slap, a punch. The kind that knocks the air from your lungs and leaves you gasping. Don't worry about her. She's too stupid to read the fine print. She'll sign whatever we put in front of her just to get a pat on the head. A stupid. The word echoed through the years. She's been playing with computers for years. Sloane's voice dripped with contempt. Still no real job. Still living in that sad little apartment. I posted a throwback photo of her last week, remember? The comments were brutal. Everyone asking when she'll grow up and get a real career. At least the cottage sale is clean. Bryce affirmed. always calculating his angle. She won't even understand what she's signing. Just tell her it's trust fund paperwork. She'll believe anything. My hand dropped from the doorknob. 3 years ago, I paid off $50,000 of Sloane's credit card debt anonymously. I thought I was protecting her. Protecting all of them. But now, standing in this hallway, with my family's laughter echoing through the door, I felt something shift. Something cold and clean and sharp replaced the ache of betrayal. They didn't misunderstand me. They despised my intelligence because it threatened their control. The idea of acting as their silent protector, the person who made quiet fixes for people who saw sacrifice as weakness, ended right there. The internal conflict I had struggled with, the desire to prove myself versus the need to protect my assets, vanished. My feet turned on the thick Persian runner, making no sound as I walked back down the hallway, through the foyer, and out the front door. The plot to steal Rosewood Cottage, to settle the father's massive debt, had been successfully executed, only not the way they thought it would be. Kalen stood beside my car, his posture military straight despite the late hour. He had been my head of security for 3 years. And in that time, he had learned exactly who I was and what I was worth. He had never told a soul. He opened the back door without a word, and I slid into the leather seat. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. I looked into the rearview mirror. Kalen's eyes met mine briefly before he focused on the road. "Get me the audit logs for Scott and Partners," I said. My voice sounded different, even to me. Lower, colder. Tonight. For 3 years, I had been the polite boss who said please and thank you. And who apologized when I asked him to work late. He saw something different now. Something that understood the necessity of ruthlessness. "Yes, boss." The engine started. We pulled away from the estate, away from the people inside who thought I was too stupid to read fine print, too weak to understand what they were doing to me. They were wrong. The Four Seasons suite cost $8,000 a night. I wasn't staying there for the view. I was here because the walls were soundproof. The internet connection ran on dedicated fiber. And nobody from my family would ever think to look for me in a hotel that required a black card just to book a room. It was 2:30 in the morning. 3 monitors glowed blue across the mahogany desk, each one displaying a different layer of Scott and Partners financial infrastructure. My fingers moved across the keyboard without conscious thought. Muscle memory from 10,000 hours of coding translating into commands that peeled back every transaction, every wire transfer, every desperate attempt my father made to cover his losses. Aether Systems provided the cybersecurity to his firm. It had for 2 years. He didn't know that. He didn't know that every email, every financial record, every panicked message to his accountant flowed through servers I controlled. He called me stupid. I pulled up the first document. A case file from 18 months ago. Richard Scott, representing a pharmaceutical company against a class action lawsuit. The opposing counsel had documentation, witnesses, momentum. My father bet $6 million on a settlement that never came. He lost everything. Next file. Another gamble. Another loss. The pattern emerged like a fracture spreading across glass. $20 million. Gone. Not stolen, not embezzled. Just arrogant, reckless decisions, made by a man who believed his charm could override facts and evidence. The anger wasn't hot, it was a cold, pure assessment of incompetence and ego. I opened Sloane's financial records next. Her surgeon's salary was substantial, $280,000 a year. It should have been enough for anyone. Except she spent $580,000 annually. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, a wine collection that cost more per bottle than I paid for my first car. She had been bleeding money for years, using credit cards like they were somehow disconnected from reality, from consequence. She was an anchor dragging my father down further. I found the email thread buried in her personal account. Subject line: The Mackenzie problem. My stomach clenched, but I opened it anyway. Sloane to Richard, 3 months ago. One need to activate the family ATM before she figures out she has options. Richard's response: She won't figure it out. She's too busy playing with computers. Sloane again. The cottage is the play. Sentimental value. She'll do anything to keep it. We frame it as helping her. Take what we need. Move on. 3 months. They had been planning this for 3 months. Not a sudden, desperate decision, but a premeditated, calculated conspiracy to manipulate me using my only emotional vulnerability. My grandmother's house. I was just a tool to them, a means to an end. I screenshot everything. Every email. Every transaction. Every lie they told themselves about who I am and what I was worth. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about exposing the lie that defined our family. My phone buzzed at 3:15 in the morning. Preston Vance. The only person outside my security team who knew the truth of my wealth. You should be sleeping, I said. So should you. His voice carried that particular strain of someone who had spent the last 48 hours preparing for the biggest financial event of his career. The Aether IPO is tracking to break records. Less than 24 hours until bell. I know. Do you? He paused. I heard him moving, probably pacing his office. Preston didn't sit still when money was on the line. Because, if you don't legally sever your finances before market open, their debt becomes your liability. California family law is not your friend here. The words hit like cold water. I knew this, intellectually, but hearing it stated plainly. Hearing the timeline compressed into hours, instead of abstract future consequences, made it viscerally real. My focus sharpened. I had planned to take them down, but now I had to save myself first. How bad? I asked. $20 million in debt against $2.8 billion in assets. The creditors will come for you the second your net worth goes public. They'll argue familial responsibility, shared household history. You'll spend years in litigation, even if you win. I closed my eyes. The monitors painted blue shadows across my eyelids. Save them or save your empire, Preston, he stated simply. You don't get both. The emotional truth was complex. That ended now. I need a quitclaim deed, I said, my voice steady now. I was done with the emotional calculus. For Rosewood Cottage. That's not enough, Mackenzie. Preston countered immediately. You need a full financial separation waiver. Every future claim, every potential liability. He was all business, stripping away any pretense of family sentiment. Can you bury it in the language? Page 7, paragraph 3. Make it look like standard charity paperwork. Preston went quiet. I could almost hear the weight of the request settling on his conscience. He was a professional, but this was scorched earth against family. That's scorched earth, he finally said. That's survival. They'll sign it without reading, I stated. A fact derived from years of observation, confirmed by the emails I had just read. You know they will. Another pause, longer this time. I imagined him weighing the ethics against the necessity, the familial obligation against the cold mathematics of wealth preservation. The friends and family IPO allocations, he said, the shift in his tone signaling the true cost. If you include the waiver, they forfeit everything. How much? I asked, anticipating a substantial number, but preparing for the worst. 1.5 million shares at projected opening. He paused, letting the figure sink in. If we hit 80, $4 per share. That's $126 million. He trailed off, knowing I would run the next calculation immediately. I did the math instantly. If the stock performed the way I knew it would. If Aether Systems proved what I knew it could prove. If the stock quadrupled like similar IPOs have. The forfeiture became $500 million. They wanted to steal my grandmother's house, valued at $850,000. I was about to let them sign away over $500 million. The sheer scale of the betrayal and the subsequent punishment was dizzying. But it felt right. It was a perfectly calculated price for their greed and contempt. Draft it, I ordered. Have it ready by noon. Mackenzie. Preston's voice softened. He almost never used my full name. Are you sure? I looked at the monitors again, at the evidence of their contempt, displayed in financial transactions and casual cruelty. I stared at the email where Sloan called me an ATM they hadn't activated yet. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I ended the call. The suite fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the 3 glowing monitors, and my own measured breathing. The decision was made. I was saving myself and sacrificing their $500 million future. A moment later, Kalen knocked once, entering without waiting for permission. He was carrying a black folder, the kind lawyers use for documents that matter. The deed? I asked. Drafted, reviewed, notarized, and ready for signature. He set the folder on the desk. He hesitated, his face carefully blank. But his voice was rough. They don't deserve you, boss. Kalen never editorialized, never offered opinions. He provided security, maintained silence, executed orders without question. No, I said, meeting his eyes, they don't. He nodded once, turned to leave. Kalen. He stopped. Thank you. Just doing my job, boss. But we both knew that wasn't true. His job was protecting my body. What he was actually protecting was something else entirely, my dignity, finally realized and fiercely defended. After he left, I opened the black folder. The quitclaim deed sat on top, official and innocuous. Underneath, buried in dense legal language, exactly where I specified, the waiver clause waited like a landmine. They think I am too stupid to read fine print. They are about to learn exactly how wrong they are. The clock was ticking toward noon. With the legal trap set, I needed to ground myself before the final confrontation. I was sitting in my car outside a coffee shop, 3 blocks from my apartment, engine idling. watching steam rise from a paper cup I hadn't touched. Then my phone lit up with an Instagram notification. At 8:04 in the morning. It was Sloan. A throwback photo of me at 19, unwashed hair pulled into a messy ponytail, oversized hoodie swallowing my frame. Hunched over a laptop in the corner of the campus library. Dark circles under my eyes looked like bruises. I remembered that night. 2 hours into a coding marathon, focused to the point of forgetting that meals existed. The caption read, "Throwback. To little sis's lost years tinkering with code. Some of us grew up. Family love. Priorities. 847 likes already." I scrolled through the comments, each one a small knife sliding between ribs. When will she get a real job? Such a disappointment to the family. Maybe it's time for an intervention. 200 comments, all of them seeing exactly what Sloan wanted them to see: the failure, the embarrassment, the family burden who never grew up. They were softening me up, making sure I was wounded and desperate. When I walked into that library at 3 o'clock, grateful for whatever scraps they offered. The cruelty was precise, surgical. I drove to Rosewood Cottage alone. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires. I parked beneath the oak tree my grandmother planted when she was 23 and newly married. The house looked tired. White paint peeling. Shutters needing replacement. But the bones were good, solid. I let myself in with the key I had carried for 8 years, the one my grandmother pressed into my palm the summer before she died. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old wood and the ghost of her lavender perfume. I ran my hand along the banister, feeling the honest wear from honest use. Her needlepoint still hung in the hallway, quoting Virginia Woolf. "A woman must have money and a room of her own." She stitched that when she was 67, hanging it like a quiet declaration of war. I walked through the room slowly, touching the chipped counter, where I had dropped a cast iron skillet, seeing the reading chair by the window. I sat in that chair now. I remembered her trying to tell me, in this very kitchen, when I was 16, teaching me to code on her ancient desktop. "You're worth more than their approval, Mackenzie." I didn't believe her then. I wanted to, but I didn't. I was always the giver. The one who fixed her computer, who sat with her during her last month, when everyone else had better things to do. And when she died, they cried at the funeral, then tried to sell her house 3 months later. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head, clear as if she were sitting across from me. "The house, the cottage, is wood and stone, Mackenzie. Your dignity is what matters." A few minutes later, I heard gravel crunch outside. Callan filled the doorway. He was carrying the black folder. "The final documents, boss." He set the folder on the side table. "Everything's ready." He didn't leave. He just stood there, hands clasped behind his back, looking at the needlepoint on the wall. "They don't deserve you." His voice was rough, unaccustomed to emotion. "Your grandmother would be proud of what you've built." Something in my chest loosened. Not much, just enough to breathe. "Thank you." He nodded once and left. The door clicked shut behind him. The phone buzzed. It was Preston. "IPO opens at $84 per share. You're about to become a billionaire. Ready?" I typed back with steady fingers. More ready than they'll ever know. I was not going to the library meeting, as the pathetic failure, Sloane had broadcast to the world. I was going as the architect of their destruction, ready to reclaim the dignity my grandmother fought so hard for. 2 o'clock arrived faster than it should have. I was standing in my apartment bathroom, staring at the black suit hanging on the back of the door. Tom Ford, tailored to fit like armor. Today, I was wearing it to a family party. I dressed slowly, each piece deliberate: the suit, the white silk blouse beneath it, the Patek Philippe watch that cost more than my father's car. My reflection stared back, a woman my grandmother always knew I would become. At 2:47 post-meridian, 1 hour before market close, I got into the town car. Kalen drove without asking where we were going. He knew. I texted Preston, "The bait is ready. Let them take it." His response was immediate. "They won't know what hit them." The car pulled away from my building. I wasn't going to a party. I was going to a negotiation. And they were about to get their wish to see me sign my life away, just not the way they expected. The library smelled like leather and lies, old money and older secrets. My father, Richard, sat behind the mahogany desk like a king granting an audience. His personal attorney stood beside him. Some gray suit with a forgettable face and a very memorable hourly rate. Bryce leaned against the bookshelf to my left, arms crossed. That smug little smile playing at his mouth. The smile that said he was already counting his commission. It was 3 o'clock. 1 hour until market close. Sloane's perfume arrived 5 seconds before she did, something French and floral and suffocating. She swept past me without acknowledgement, taking her position at Richard's right hand. "Thank you for coming, Mackenzie." Richard's voice carried that particular tone. The one that sounded warm, but wasn't. The one he used on clients, right before he explained why their case was hopeless. "I know this is short notice. You said it was important," I replied, keeping my voice soft, uncertain. The way I used to sound at 19, when I desperately wanted him to notice me, to value anything I did. "It is." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please. Sit." I sat, folded my hands in my lap, and let my shoulders curve inward just slightly. The practiced body language of someone who had never learned to take up space. The attorney slid a thick document across the desk. Trust fund release and property transfer was printed in bold. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't sweat. But I made sure they thought they did. "We've been discussing your future," Richard began, actually sounding paternal and concerned, as if he were about to do me a favor, instead of robbing me blind. "You're 26 years old, still trying to find your path. That's admirable, sweetheart. But it's time we helped you get started." "Started with what?" I let my voice crack just a little. Just enough. "With your life." Sloane's tone could cut glass. "We're releasing $50,000 from the family trust. Seed money for your little computer hobby." Little computer hobby. The words sat in my chest like stones. Aether Systems employed 217 people. Our quarterly revenue exceeded what their law firm made in 2 years. But I stayed silent. Instead, I picked up the document with fingers that were trembling. Not from fear, but from the sheer effort of not laughing in their faces. I scanned the first page, standard trust release language. Page 2 outlined the $50,000 payment. By page 3, we were into property transfer clauses. and by page 7, paragraph 3, they were taking everything. Rosewood Cottage was being transferred to cover outstanding family obligations. The $20 million in gambling debts. They were trading my inheritance for 4% of what they owed. And they thought I wouldn't notice. This is very generous. The attorney spoke for the first time. Given your situation, Miss Scott, I'd say your family is being extraordinarily accommodating. My situation. Like I was the problem. I don't understand. I looked up at Richard, letting my eyes get wet, just on the edge of crying. Why the cottage? That's Grandma's house. Was her house. Sloane corrected, already bored. Her phone sat on the desk in front of her, Instagram open. Ready to document my breakdown. She's been dead for 3 years, Mackenzie. You can't even afford the property taxes. But I could figure something out. Please, Dad. It's all I have. I was pleading now. You'll have $50,000. Richard checked his Rolex. 3:17. He was getting impatient. That's more than most people your age have managed to save. You should be grateful. Grateful. The word tasted like poison. Bryce actually laughed. Doing what, Mackenzie? You've been coding in your apartment for 6 years. No publications. No portfolio anyone's seen. The market's brutal right now. You'd be lucky to land an entry-level position. It's better this way, Sloane said, not looking up. You can't afford the upkeep anyway. No real income. The attorney tapped the signature line on page 19. Miss Scott. I have another appointment at 4. If we could finalize this now. Richard leaned forward, his expression shifting from paternal to cold. Sign it, or get nothing. We're done coddling you, Mackenzie. It's time you learned how the real world works. The clock on the wall read 3:42. 18 minutes until market close. Sign the document. Richard bit off each word. I reached for the pen, allowing my hand to tremble visibly. But before the tip touched the paper, I stopped. I want a copy, I whispered. For my records. Grandma always said to keep records. Richard rolled his eyes. But the attorney murmured, It's standard procedure, Mr. Scott. He pulled a duplicate set from his briefcase, sliding the second set across the mahogany. I signed the first one, then the second. My handwriting looked broken, uncertain on both. Richard signed. The attorney notarized both stacks with heavy thunks of his stamp. Happy. Richard snatched his copy before the ink dried. Never glancing past page 2. He never even saw the trap waiting on page 7. I pulled my copy toward me, folding it slowly, clutching it to my chest like a security blanket. Thank you, Daddy. Excellent. Richard stood. I'm glad we could resolve this efficiently. The funds will be transferred to your account by end of week. They left. All of them, Sloane already typing on her phone, Bryce shooting me one last pitying look. The mahogany door closed. Silence. I counted to 20. The tears vanished, gone like turning off a faucet. I checked my payback Philip. 3:47. 13 minutes to close. Checkmate. I whispered to the empty room. I stood and smoothed my jacket, securing the duplicate original in the inner pocket. The document included complete waiver of all future familial financial claims, including but not limited to friends and family stock allocations. They just signed away $500 million for $50,000, and a cottage worth $850,000. The performance was over. The tears were gone. My face was a mask of cold anticipation as I walked to the French doors that opened onto the terrace. I was not leaving yet. 11 minutes until they realized what they had done. 11 minutes until everything changed. The champagne tasted like victory to Richard, who raised his glass at the podium, surveying 200 guests scattered across the manicured lawn of the estate. String quartet, uniformed servers, flower arrangements that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I stood near the back, my black suit sharp as a blade, watching him perform. "To family legacy," he announced, his voice carrying across the garden with practiced authority. "To the businesses that define excellence in our community. Take Aether Systems, for example. Remarkable cybersecurity firm. Their IPO today represents everything American enterprise should aspire to. Innovation, discipline, vision." Sloane stood beside him, her phone held high, recording the Instagram live stream. 15,000 viewers were watching her father pontificate about success, while she angled for the perfect shot. Her smile was luminous. She thought she had won, unlike some hobbies. Richard continued, and I felt the shift coming before he made it, the inevitable, contemptuous dig. "Not everyone understands the difference between serious business and playing with computers in a basement, but that's fine. The world needs all types, even." 4 o'clock exactly. The closing bell rang somewhere in Manhattan, and the universe tilted on its axis. Bloomberg terminals throughout the party erupted simultaneously. Sharp electronic chimes mixed with the frantic buzzing of guests' phones. The string quartet faltered mid-phrase as musicians checked their devices. "What the hell?" someone muttered near the bar. The murmurs started low, building like a wave gathering strength. AET up 400%. Aether Systems. IPO closed at $336 per share. That's impossible. The opening was $84. Richard kept talking, oblivious, still mid-sentence about family values and business acumen, still performing for an audience that was no longer listening to him. Preston Vance stepped forward from the crowd. Tailored gray suit. The SECS1 filing printed and bound in his hands like scripture. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who has closed billion-dollar deals before breakfast. "Ladies and gentlemen." His voice cut through Richard's speech without having to raise in volume. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe some clarification is needed." Richard stopped, confused, annoyed. "Preston, this isn't the time. I'd like to introduce the founder and CEO of Aether Systems." Preston turned, extending his hand toward me. J. Scott, who's been operating under her initials for privacy. Silence crashed over the garden like a physical force. 200 faces turned toward me. Mouths opened, eyes wide. It was the kind of stunned recognition that happens when reality rewrites itself in real time. Richard's face drained of color. All that expensive, scotch-fueled confidence evaporated as his brain caught up to what his ears just heard. "MJ," someone whispered. "Mackenzie Jane." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I simply let them process. Sloane's phone dropped 3 inches before she caught it. The live stream wobbling, capturing her expression perfectly. Mathematical horror, beginning its slow crawl across her features. Richard recovered first. Decades of courtroom performance taught him how to pivot. My daughter. He rushed toward me, arms spread wide for an embrace. I always believed in her vision. I always knew. I stepped back. One clean, deliberate movement. His arms closed on empty air. He froze, recalculated, and pivoted again, turning to Preston. The friends and family, IPO allocations. He stammered. We should discuss those. I'm sure Mackenzie has reserved shares for her family. Haven't you, sweetheart? Sloane's fingers flew across her phone screen. I could see the calculation happening in real time. $336 per share. Multiplied by whatever allocation she thought she deserved. Her eyes glazed with the kind of immediate greed that makes people stupid. Bryce Sterling stood near the fountain, frozen. His investment banking brain did the math differently. His commission on the cottage sale was pocket change. Nothing. Less than nothing compared to what he just realized he lost. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the document I had folded and tucked away in the library 13 minutes ago. The duplicate original. About those allocations, Father. My voice carried, calm and clear. The voice I used in board meetings, when I was about to fire someone who thought they were indispensable. There's a clause in the document you signed. The garden went silent again. Even the string quartet stopped pretending to play. Page 7, paragraph 3. Would you like me to read it? Or would you prefer to read it yourself? I unfolded the paper, holding it up so the guests closest could see the notary seal, the witness signatures, Richard's own attorney's stamp at the bottom. What document? Richard's face shifted confusion to concern to dawning, visceral comprehension. The one you witnessed at 3:47 post-meridian. The trust fund release and property transfer. The one you were so eager to have me sign that you didn't read past page 2. Richard's lawyer brain was trying desperately to find the loophole, the out, the appeal. But there wasn't one. He had witnessed the signature himself. He took a staggering step back as the depth of his error settled. About those allocations, Father. I repeated, maintaining the calm authority that comes from holding the winning hand. I read the clause aloud. Complete waiver of all future familial financial claims. I read aloud. Each word landing like a hammer blow, including, but not limited to, friends and family stock allocations, inheritance expectations, and corporate benefits. Sloane's phone clattered to the flagstone. It didn't shatter. It just lay there, the live stream still running, capturing her face as understanding destroyed her from the inside out. Her attempt to calculate her stock allocation ended in a figure that was now 0. Preston stepped forward again, the numbers man, always ready with the data. The friends and family allocation was 1.5 million shares. At the closing price of $336 per share, that's $504 million. Someone gasped. Multiple people gasped. The math was too big, too devastating, too perfectly brutal to process quietly. Every guest, every partner, every judge Richard golfed with, heard the number. You forced them to sign it away. Preston continued, looking directly at Richard. For $50,000 and a cottage worth $850,000. Richard's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound emerged. He looked like a statue carved out of shame. Their greed, I thought, their contempt for my intelligence, had made them blind. Their greed, I said quietly, making sure every witness heard what came next. Cost them $500 million. Sloane made a sound. Not quite a sob, not quite a scream. Something in between that belonged to someone watching their entire future collapse in real time. Bryce Sterling, still frozen by the fountain, had just realized his commission on the cottage sale was the most expensive financial decision of his career. His investment banking reputation died right there. I turned to Richard. Aether Systems is also raising Scott and Partners cybersecurity premiums by 20%. Effective immediately. Consider it professional risk assessment based on high-risk client status. 140 witnesses, including his law partners, including the judges he played golf with, heard the announcement. Sloane's Instagram live stream had captured everything. Her face registering mathematical horror, her father trying to claim credit for a success he had mocked, and the final, devastating cost of their arrogance. I folded the document carefully, sliding it back into my jacket pocket. My business with them was concluded. Enjoy the party, I said over my shoulder. It's the last thing I'm paying for. The words hung in the air, a clean, final severance. I walked toward the exit, through the stunned, silent crowd. My footsteps were quiet, but the absence of their laughter was deafening. The silence was my victory march. I had finally prioritized my own self-worth and my future over the toxic demand of family obligation. The overwhelming sense of power was not in the money, but in the absolute, unquestionable justice of the act. Kalen waited by the car. He opened the door without a word, and I slid into the leather seat. The door closed with that familiar solid thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling, isolating me from the chaos I had just created. Behind me, the garden erupted in whispers, phones out, messages flying. The story was spreading like wildfire through networks that would carry it to every corner of their professional lives. The car pulled away from the estate, away from the people inside who thought I was too stupid to read fine print. They were wrong. 3 days later, the Wall Street Journal sat folded on the leather seat beside me. I didn't need to open it again. The headline, Mystery CEO Menjay Scott revealed as 26-year-old tech prodigy, was burned into my vision. Forbes put my net worth at $2.8 billion. The SUV glided through morning traffic at 8 o'clock. Kalen was silent behind the wheel. My first board meeting as publicly known CEO started in 90 minutes, but first, there was other business to handle. My phone vibrated. Email notification from Willow Holdings, LLC. The shell company I had established 6 months ago. Subject line, property transfer complete. Rosewood Cottage was mine. The bank was happy to sell the mortgage note, holding the cottage as collateral, a clean transaction, cash for debt. I was now the creditor holding the keys. I attached the digital eviction notice to my response emails, 30 days to remove their belongings, standard legal language, professional, cold, send. My father's attorney called 6 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Threats of litigation, accusations of theft, of manipulating an old man. Review the quitclaim deed, I texted back. You witnessed the signature. Everything is legal. Everything is documented. This conversation is over. Block number. Sloane's voicemail came through next. A mix of rage and tears, something about betrayal and family. Delete. Bryce texted, "Can we talk?" Block. Delete. Gone. The family group chat sat at the top of my messages, 17 unread texts since last night. Richard, trying to explain and manipulate. Sloane, demanding I fix this. Distant cousins chiming in about my selfishness. I deleted the entire thread without reading past the previews. Then, I changed my phone number. The process took 4 minutes. Everyone else could figure out how to contact me through official channels, if they were worth my time. The SUV pulled up to Ether Systems, headquarters at 8:47 in the morning. Modern glass and steel, 5 stories. Our name in brushed metal letters that caught the morning sun. Kaylin opened my door. The cool morning air carried the scent of success and coffee. They started clapping before I was through the entrance. A standing ovation that echoed off the marble floors. My people, my team, the family I chose instead of the one I was born into. Preston appeared at my elbow, eyes bright with something that might be pride. "Ready, MJ?" I looked at the faces watching me. Young engineers who bet their careers on my vision. Security specialists who understood that protection meant more than just code. "I've been ready my whole life," I told him. They just couldn't see it. We walked through the applause toward the executive elevators that would take me to the boardroom where I belonged. The past stays behind me. The future is mine, protected, earned, and entirely my own.